There are 27 district court judges in Bexar County, and we all sit on the Bexar County Juvenile Board, and it operates as a board of directors overseeing all the juvenile processes and systems that go on in our county. County Judge Nelson Wolf is also a member of the board, and we have 4 committees: budget, facilities, program, and trial. In the Bexar County Juvenile Department, there are 123 probation officers and approximately 650 employees overall. But the board oversees all the operations of the probation department, the detention center, the Crier Juvenile Correctional Facility, the Mission Road Placement Facility, as well as the Juvenile Justice Academy. There are 3 of us here in Bexar County hearing juvenile cases exclusively. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Judge Jarrett to tell you a little bit more about the system.
You know in your work, and we know at the juvenile level, that juveniles are different. And so in the juvenile system, we treat them differently. We look at children from the ages of 10 to 16. Once they turn 17, they're out of our jurisdiction and they go over to the adult system. We know that those juveniles, once they turn 18 or 19, depending on whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor, they are going to come back into our community and they're going to be living next door to one of us. So what we're trying to do now in the juvenile system is redirect the misdirected. We do that in several different ways, and we're going to go into those today. We have 2. We're going to talk about all our specialty programs, but we're going to specifically at the end focus on 2 of the specialty courts that have been created recently. These offenses are from the Texas Penal Code. These are crimes that you or I would go either to Bexar County Jail or we'd go to the Texas Department of Corrections. It does include status offenses, which we call CHINS offenses, which are children in need of supervision. Obviously, you understand those are things that you or I cannot get in trouble for. Curfew violations, not going to school, truancy, possession of tobacco products, minor in possession of alcohol. Those are mostly heard by the Justice of the Peace courts or the municipal courts, but if it gets a little out of control, then they can be sent to one of the 3 juvenile courts here. There's several different things that can happen in a juvenile court. Sometimes they don't even get to see the judge. For example, a probation officer may look at that case when the child is detained and say, you know, this child, this is out of character. Maybe it's a shoplifting case or a first-time possession of marijuana. This is out of character for this child. They're doing great in school. The family says they have no problems. They have great grades, so we don't really know what happened. So they assess that case, they can counsel that family, and then they can release that child. And they will never see any type of court action. We call that an ACR, and that case is closed. The probation officer, if there's not a victim involved, could also decide, hey, this child needs a little more than just a counsel and release, but we don't want to get them involved in the system. So let's place them on a special type of probation, the deferred prosecution, which is normally about 6 months. It can be a little less. It can't be more than 12 months, but usually about 6 months, and there's still the same conditions of probation. They might have to do some counseling. They would have to have a curfew. Different things that we'll talk about later on in the presentation, but at the end of that deferred prosecution, the case would be dismissed, and the child, if they don't mess up during that term, does not have to have court action. Now, if the child does need a little more services than deferred, or there is a victim involved, then that case will be referred to the juvenile court, and there's several different things that can happen. If it's a misdemeanor case, anything theft, possession of marijuana, some graffiti cases, assault cases, that child could be placed on probation until their 18th birthday, either in the care, custody, and control of a parent, or if the parent's not giving proper supervision, we could place them in the care, custody, and control of the chief probation officer. At that point, the probation department would determine what the best placement is for that child. They can be placed on probation, as I said, until their 18th birthday. Normal probations are about anywhere from 6 months to 12 months. Depending on the case, they can run longer. If the child needs even more supervision than just a regular probation, we can do several different things. Intensive supervision, maybe the child is involved in gang activity, and we put them on gang intensive supervision. where the Project Spotlight goes out at night and checks to make sure they're where they're supposed to be and not hanging with who they're not supposed to be with. We could put them on drug ISP if they have a drug problem. There's just different types of intensive supervision. Sometimes if the child is headed to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, which used to be called the Texas Youth Commission, we might choose to do a weekend program first. And that'll be coming up. We'll talk about the weekend program. We could also commit them, if it's a felony offense, to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department until their 19th birthday. And if the case is very egregious, if we have a murder case, aggravated robbery, aggravated assault, the child could even be certified and transferred to adult court. That involves a hearing. There's several elements that the state must prove, and if they do that, then the judge certifies and transfers that case to an adult court. For an example, I'll just throw out an example here. I've had 2 children, 15 years of age, that had conspired to kill one of the fathers because the father wasn't letting him talk on the phone after hours, had to be home at a certain time, had a curfew, and just didn't want his dad around anymore. They planned it for about 6 months. This kid whose dad was the victim, he gave the other child a shotgun. And one night, New Year's Eve, the family had just gotten back from New Mexico. Because of the long car ride, the father's back was hurting. He said, I can't make it upstairs. I'm gonna sleep on the couch tonight. The son said, I'll lock the doors, texted his friend and said, tonight's the night. The friend came in through the kitchen door that the child had left unlocked and shot the man on his couch with his own shotgun. That case shouldn't be allowed just to go to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department until the 19th birthday. So the state proved their case, we certified it to the adult system, and they received 30 years in the adult prison system. So we can also certify and transfer to adult court. Judge Parker and I both keep our cases after we certify and transfer them because we're familiar with the cases. Now, let's go back to just the juveniles though, our normal juveniles. Our key initiatives, our philosophies are to balance accountability with treatment. And that's why you're going to hear about these diversionary courts today. We hold these kids accountable to us as judges. They have to see us often. And we also have early intervention. We do that through schools where we have probation officers in our schools. They're not only trained to deal with the the probation kids that are in their classes, they're also trained to deal with children that are in crisis or children that you can see are going to be in need. Communities and Schools also deals with these children. So we do early intervention. All of our programs involve a lot of family-centered intervention. As you can imagine, many of the people don't have the ability to come to locations, so we provide in-house mental health services and family-centered intervention. All right. The causes of juvenile crime. The main cause that I see is truancy. Truancy leads to a lot of these other causes of juvenile crime. If a child is not in school, they're on the street, they're hanging with the wrong people, so you've got the delinquent peer groups, the gangs. They're doing things with these gangs or with these delinquent peer groups that they may not normally do. So you've got your substance abuse, your mental health issues. And those are very closely connected. We have a lot of, as you know, a lot of self-medication with those mental health issues. They're young, they have poor decision-making skills, and the way that we're going right now with the family life, we have the demise of the family life and an increase in family violence. And that also is a cause of juvenile crime.
Okay, as Lisa said, we do have lots and lots of programming for the juveniles that we have under our care. And we do have a lot of school-based programs. We have probation officers actually in about 20 of the public high schools here in Bexar County. And they work with kids who are on probation, but they work with them at their school campus. So they're not always having to come into the probation department to make these meetings. If there's school issues that come up, they're able to deal with them in a meaningful way right then. I think one of the big problems with kids is they don't really think ahead. And so if they're going to get in trouble in 3 weeks for something they do today, they're probably going to go ahead and do it. If they're going to get in trouble or found out, within 30 minutes, they might think twice about the way they conduct themselves. And so that's been a very successful part of our interventions at schools. Lisa did touch on the specialty court model. I really feel that that's the way all of juvenile probation is headed. A very individualized treatment plan for every kid that comes under supervision of the department. We have pre-adjudication and post-adjudication drug court. In fact, I have a lot of my drug court treatment providers here in the audience today. I have the girls' mental health court, which focuses on junior high aged girls, usually between the ages of 12 and 15, and it is a diversion program for girls with low-level offenses. Lisa has her family enrichment court, which is usually a family violence offense that occurs in the home, usually where a kid assaults the parent or siblings. I have my restore court, which is for the victims of sex trafficking, and I'm going to talk more in depth about that. And Lisa has her crossover program for the kids that are in CPS as well as probation custody. We do a lot of in-home services, in-home counseling. I know my drug counselors go to the homes, and a lot of the people that we serve have a lot of barriers to accessing treatment. You can have the best treatment in the world, but if you have a car that doesn't work to drive you across town to get to the good appointment, it's just not going to work for you. And so we've really found that by bringing the services to the family at their home or at their school, at the kids' school, that we have a lot more success, and we have just a lot better attendance and compliance overall. And with my Crossroads program, I have a lot of the girls that are in that have also spent time here at Clarity at one point or another. So we do have some partnerships established with them. We have several local residential treatment centers. Within the Bexar County Detention Center, we have a thing called the Mission Road Center, which is a 12-bed program for girls, and it is a placement facility, and that's for girls who, about half of them have been identified as victims of sex trafficking, but all of them have very, very severe mental health problems and not really a good family situation to go home to. We have the Crier facility, which is in South Bexar County off of Southton Road, and that is a boys facility, and it holds 96 boys, and we have a lot of boys that wind up there. And the kids that wind up in these treatment facilities are ones that maybe in the past would have wound up at the Texas Youth Commission or in state custody, but we found by keeping them closer to home, the families are able to participate in the treatment, and so when they do go home, the families have also been engaged in what's going on, where a lot of times when you send kids out of county or to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department facilities, they are far from home. I mean, the closest TJJD facility to us is like in Edinburgh or Giddings, 3 hours, 5 hours from here. And so it's very difficult for the families to engage meaningfully in the treatment with their kids. And so a lot of times they come back, not that much work has been done at the home, and they fall back into their old habits. So we have had some success by trying to keep kids close to home so that the families can get engaged in their treatment. We do have a weekend program for those kids that are kind of on the borderline, or maybe they just got back from placement. We're trying to reintegrate them into their family situation, and they spend 4 consecutive weekends at the Bexar County Detention Center, and each weekend is a treatment opportunity, and each weekend builds upon the previous one, and they have a graduation at the end, and that's also been a very successful program. All right, moving on to the budget. I showed this slide to homeowners group last year, and they wanted to know if that was the budget for all of Texas, $43 million. And no, that is the budget for Bexar County to service juveniles and the probation system here. The county puts in about $30 million. The rest is a combination of grants, state money, school money for the Juvenile Justice Academy. But it is a very expensive proposition to try to work with kids, but you can either pay now or you can pay later. And so we have been very blessed here for a long time with our county commissioners that they have felt that this was a worthwhile investment. And we've had great leadership at the probation department to also implement lots of new programming. And I've been on the bench for 15 years, and the department that we have now is far different than the one that I started with. And I think I'm far different as well, just over time, finding out what works and what doesn't. So it is a lot of money, but it keeps kids out of prison and helps families get back on track. And so in my opinion, it has been money well spent.
Now we have some fun slides. We're going to show you some pictures of different areas around. This is at the top, this is where Judge Parker and Judge Kelsey's courts are. So 2 courtrooms are there. There's some probation officers in there, and then the administration. Under here, you'll see, that's actually, those windows are in the courtroom that I'm in at this time. And behind me, in just a minute, you'll see the whole detention. So I am actually in the detention center. Up here, that's where our new probation building, it's not really new anymore, but that's where most of the probationers are, and a lot of people in here, office in there. And then down here is just an overview of Crier. That's one of the secure facilities that Judge Parker talked about, and all the way around you can see that it is secure with the fence. Moving on to just the Bexar County Juvenile Detention Center. It has a 278 bed capacity. It's both for detention and treatment. So 220 of those beds are for detention purposes. Usually during a school year, we have about 160 to 180 kids. In the summer, you would think that we would have more, but we have less. Kids, I don't think they don't get in trouble in the summer, they just don't get caught. So it goes way down in the summer. 58 beds are for treatment or detention. So if treatment's needed, we have 58 beds for them. We have a detention hearing every 10 days or less. A child is not entitled to a bond like an adult is. It's totally up to the judge whether or not that child will be released, based on whether they're a danger to themselves or others, whether they're a flight risk. So we have to see a child within 24 hours of them being detained, or if they're detained on a Friday, the next Monday. And then after that, we must see them every 10 working days. We hear how they're doing from their probation officer and make a determination whether they stay in detention or whether they're released. The average length of stay in 2013 was about 21 days. And that's kind of the same. In 2012, it was about 20.6 days. So normally, it's anywhere between 2 weeks. Some kids get let out the first day. Some that are dangers, if they have a murder case or an aggravated robbery case, may stay up to 4 months if they can't get to trial in that time. And they are being educated. They are doing classes with San Antonio ISD. And so you can see that is that area, little area right there, and this is the whole detention center. Here's a mod in the Juvenile Detention Center. You can see there's 12 locked rooms. In the back here where they're monitoring, they have obviously the detention officers in the room itself, but also back there behind the windows monitoring. Each of these rooms has one child per room. They have assigned seating, and they even have to ask permission to get up to use the restroom or to get their supplies to do their homework, whatever they may need. This is a fun slide to show the kids when we go to court, because this is the bathroom in their pod, or in their own little room, and everybody's like, ew, because over here's the door, there's a little window so they can be watched at all times, and that's looking into the room, and that's their bed. These are the showers that they can use in each mod, and there's that window we were talking about. And then there's the public restroom in the mod. Every area has a restricted access, so if you get at each end, then you're gonna have to have a key or get buzzed through. This is how they get from school to where they're staying, or to court, or to the cafeteria, or to the gym. We have 2 gyms. There's 24-hour camera surveillance, so you've got cameras all up and down here. And we wanted to show you an inside view as well.